Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday Night Legal Marketing Live. My name is Mitch Jackson. Shama Hyder hopefully will be joining us in a couple of minutes. And I know she's had a busy day today. And while she's getting set up, hi, Shama, I see you in the green room. While she's getting set up and getting things rolling at her end, I do want everyone to know that I'm excited about tonight's show, and I'm also excited about our upcoming shows, which you can catch the descriptions over at Wednesday Night Legal Marketing Live. I know Shama had a lot going on today. We may not be able to bring her in, so I do want to give her a couple of extra minutes. But while I'm doing that, you guys, I want to share something with everyone, okay? A good friend of mine, Mike Darnold, is a counselor over at Dana Hills High School. He's involved with the California Youth Services. And what Mike's been doing for the last 20 plus years is helping the kids over at Dana Hills High School and this group throughout Orange County, California, regarding education, assessment, crisis intervention, counseling that assists families to help them address the life's challenges, related to substance abuse, academic challenges, behavioral and mental health struggles. And the reason I'm bringing this up right now is each week I want to profile a company or a service, not getting paid to do it, but just people that are making a difference in the community. And Mike may not know this, but a lot of kids have come into his office at Dana Hills High School who I know, where he has been there for them at 2 a.m, 3 p.m, to help them with their life challenges, saving lives. And right now, as you can imagine with COVID-19, they're having a hard time staying open. They're having a hard time raising funds to help these kids and help the families. These kids need help right now, even though school's not in. And what I told Mike during this morning's Rotary meeting, Mike's past district governor of our Rotary Club and personal friend for the last, like I said, 20, 25 years. I told him I wanted to give them a shout out tonight. So if you guys, if you can find it in your hearts, to go over to calyouthservices.org and click the donate button and help them out, doing a lot of good things here in Orange County, California. They're saving lives. You guys might recognize the last name Darnold. Mike Darnold is the grandfather of Sam Darnold, New York Jets quarterback. So they've done a lot for the local community. They've done a lot for USC. And now, obviously Sam's changing things over in New York. But if you guys can help out Mike and the California Youth Services, I would very much appreciate it. So thank you for that. All right. Shama, I see you, and I can bring you in if you're ready. Just give me a thumbs up. All right, thumbs up. That's what I like. And let me bring Shama into the screen, and there she is. You made it.
Hi, Mitch. I sure did. Boy, it's
Hello.
been an eventful day today. I'm hiding out in the garage right now, as you can tell.
I know, I got your email. I know there's been a lot going on. What I was going to do is just jump on, since everybody was going to be showing up, and just, kind of let everyone know what's going on. But I'm really glad that you're here. Okay. I'm really glad that you're here because for a couple of different reasons, all the things that you're doing, in the marketing world, digital community. And for those of you that don't know Shama, she is a visionary strategist for the digital age. She's a web and TV personality, a best-selling author, and award-winning CEO of Zen Media, which is a global marketing and digital PR firm. She's been named the Zen Master of Marketing by Entrepreneur Magazine and the Millennial Master of the Universe. Oh my goodness, Shama. But I have to say that. That's just cool to say. By fastcompany.com. She's also been honored both at the White House and the United Nations as one of the top 100 young entrepreneurs in the country. She's a best-selling author. The Zen of Social Media Marketing, Shama, is something that I read back in the day. How far back does that book go? When did that come out?
Oh my goodness, the original one, 11 years?
11 years. Not much has changed in social media over the last 11 years, right?
Just a few things here and there.
Just a few things. And also, I wanted to talk to you a little bit in the green room before we went live, but you've got a lot going on in your life right now. And
yeah.
But we all do. We all do right now with COVID-19, with people wearing multiple hats, being pulled in multiple
Yeah.
directions, trying to keep our marketing, our relationship building moving forward. At the same time, we're home with our families. We're trying to take care of there's a lot going on right now. So how do you do it? How did you get through today's day and continue to work with your clients all over the globe? What's the secret, Shama?
Oh my goodness. Well, as you can tell, hiding out in the garage with a nice hot cup of tea and good friends is very therapeutic. So that's what I'm doing, Mitch, right now as I'm sharing my tea with you. A part of it is realizing that what I do and what I love to do makes a difference. I think that's, of course, I know you're very similar in that way, Mitch, where you're driven by more than just a vocation. It's a calling, right? And so when I get on the phone with a client, when I get on the phone with a prospect, it's not about the money. I feel very good to be in a place, blessed to be in a place in my life where it's not part of the equation. What for me, is that I've got something here that I can help share that might be valuable, right? That I hope is valuable to people. Well, let's just say this, I know is valuable to people. And so I think for me, that helps me, like even today, I was like, well, I could cancel, we could reschedule, or I could show up and hopefully people can get value out of this. So just for people who don't know, I'm gonna give them a little bit of background. My little puppy is at the emergency vet. I had to run with him to the vet today because they think it's an obstruction or something of sorts. He's actually been admitted to the hospital. And so, we're keeping our fingers crossed. And we actually lost our other puppy. We had 3, we have 2 now. And he passed away not a few months ago from a very similar thing. So it's been very hard on our family. If you're anything like me, then your dogs are our family. Like to us, our dogs are our family. And anyway, so if you've ever been in that situation, or you've ever had a pet, or so then what that's like. It's very harrowing and confusing, that whole being able to navigate. Luckily, one of our clients also is a leading holistic veterinarian in the world. And so to be able to have the Rolodex, yes, his name is Dr. Jeff Feynman. He runs that holisticactions.com. Great guy, great doctor. And, it's nice to be able to have a Rolodex of people that you can reach out to and say, hey, what do you think? What should we be doing? So I'm very grateful for that. Yesterday I got an email from a gentleman in Hawaii, from one of the islands, and he runs the business association for one of the islands. And if you're familiar with that, then you know that Hawaii is all about tourism, right? Like no tourism means no economy. That's the truth for many people who are, in the tourism business. And he emailed me and he said, I represent all these businesses. We've been given a grant, but we don't quite know what to do with it. We don't know, can you help us? And so I actually have not even responded yet right away, because I reached out to a bunch of colleagues in my team and I'm trying to figure out what would be the best response to him, right? How can I serve him best right now? So I think to answer your question in sort of a long-ended way is knowing the difference that we make, knowing that what I do can help people, knowing that my very specific skill set that I've acquired. Every time I say that, I think of that the movie, God, what was it, Taken, where
yes, with Liam Neeson.
With Liam Neeson, and he does this thing, and he gets on the phone, and there's a scene where he's like, "Listen, I have a very particular set of skills, and if you do not return."
And see, here's the thing, though, Shama, what you're sharing with us is what we're all going through right now. This is the new reality, and I'll be honest with you. 4 months ago, I would have probably about 5 minutes before the top of the hour, just, let's just go ahead and cancel the show and roll it over, right, to when it works, for you and everything else. We've all got so much going on. One of the reasons I wanted to go live, either way, at least for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, there was 2 reasons. I wanted everybody to know that there's a lot going on in all of our lives right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and we need to embrace that. And we need to embrace that and be proactive. And I think that connects us more as human beings. I mean, I've watched you on huge stages with thousands of people in the audience. I've seen you and broadcasted with you from your office and everything else. Now you're coming in live from the garage, probably on your iPhone or tablet or something.
Yeah.
But these are our lives today. And the other thing, though, is I wanted to, and this is important, I wanted to keep a commitment to Mike, to my buddy, and give him a shout out for all the good work that he's doing in Orange County. And I figured, well, the least I can do is pop on and do that. And you know what? You just did that for me, though. You popped on when you didn't need to. Okay.
Oh.
And I appreciate that. And that goes back to the Rolodex that you mentioned, that type of mentality. It's like just being there and trying to help people right now, as much as showing up.
Showing up is really half the battle right now. And, showing up when you don't feel like it, showing up when you have got, and this is the type of stuff that, I talk about, right? I have such a young following too. There's a bunch of young people that follow me, and I love it. And I think it's great. I get a lot of questions from them. I've actually started doing a lot more YouTube videos, so feel free to check them out on advice for 20-year-olds and so forth. And one of the things I tell them is, show up. It's important to show up. It's important to show up even when you don't feel like showing up. And if I don't show up, then I'm like, how can I not walk that talk, right? Part of what I've been experiencing during this time too, Mitch, is just being, a lot more. It's funny because I always thought in my mind, I think I'm a very honest, transparent, straightforward person. And now one of the things I've been very consciously doing is sharing even more of my failures, sharing even more of my challenges, because I think it helps people, right, to see that, sometimes I think when people see my life, at least on screen or whatnot, and the Insta reality, right, it can be very, can be deceiving in some ways. And this is not to say I don't genuinely have a life that I feel truly blessed for. I mean, I'm very grateful. I've got, great family. I've got a lovely little boy. Like, yes, all of that.
You brought him up. I was waiting for you to bring him up. Go ahead.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm totally that mom now, that I'm like, have I mentioned my son? Which is, but part of that is, yes, there's that. And there's so much like stuff like this that happens of just, being human right now. Right. People around us have gotten tested positive for COVID. We've gone through that sort of fear and testing, that whole process. So I've been working very hard to keep my team safe, all these things that, you think about. But I guess I'm trying to share that story more. Like one of the things I talked about recently on LinkedIn, which was so interesting because I got such a different, like such a avalanche of response. And I talked about how I felt like I wasn't a good boss when I first started my company. And I
how old were you?
22, 23,
okay.
So, and that's the thing. One of the things, because I've been seeing all the stuff in the media about all these bosses, right? Startup founders and whatnot. They're getting completely, raked over the coals for these things. And I wish people would understand, not that I'm excusing that behavior, but it's not something that you are born with. It's something you have to learn, right? So when I started my company, I was not a good boss, but I didn't know that. It's so hard. I'm trying to explain it eloquently. I didn't realize that I was a bad boss. I guess generally people don't, right? If they're mean that way. But because I was so, to me, the biggest mistake that I made was I thought everybody wanted what I wanted. And you just don't. And this is common. Like as you're growing up, it takes a lot, I think, eventually to turn your lens and see that not everybody's driven by what you're driven by. And it's so funny because when I posted that and the lessons I'd learned, I had a bunch of my team members be like, why would you say that? You've been working with me since the beginning. And they were like, that's not how we felt. But I said, no, that's not the point. The point is it's my experience. And I can honestly say that I'm a much better boss today, if only because I now understand that people are driven and motivated by different things, right? And you've got to be able to connect at that level. It's got to be something bigger than yourself. Anyways, these things I think are very hard at 22, 23 to grasp. And maybe there's some rare birds out there that do grasp it. But for me now, looking back, I feel like, yes, I can see, and to me, like now I invest in how do I continue to be a better version, not just of myself, but I've always been driven to do, but how can I be a better leader? How can I be a better boss? Right?
I noticed
a lot of people, sorry, Mitch, a lot of people are turned off by the term boss. I'm not. I feel like you can't be what you can't see. So I like, as a woman of color, I own that. I'm like, yes, I own that title. But with that title comes a lot of learnings and responsibilities. And that's the part that I think took me a long time to fully reconcile, and things that I'm working on every day to think about: how do I become a better boss? How do I serve my team better?
And I don't think it ever stops. I apologize. I didn't mean to speak over you. I think we
Oh,
had a
no,
little
please.
glitch. It's kind of, it's interesting. I know you're speaking, I think next week at the Adobe Experience Makers virtual event, if I'm not mistaken, and
That's right.
Brene Brown is one of the speakers. And I'm listening right now while I'm running. You've seen my running videos. I'm listening to Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. And
Mm-hmm.
even at my senior age and 3 decades of being a boss, right, in different companies and
Mm-hmm.
different environments, I'm learning so much from Brene's book, and it parallels exactly what you said. And I encourage everyone, well, what I was getting at is in your social media post, what I'm noticing, Shama, is these are the things you're talking about now. You are becoming more transparent over the last couple of months. You're talking about leadership,
Yeah.
and I've noticed that. And if you don't mind, you are speaking at the Adobe Experience Makers. Brene Brown's going to be there. Can you give us a little taste about the topic you'll be talking about? Maybe
Sure.
some insider tips for those. And for those of you out
Yeah.
there, keep your questions coming in. I'll get to the questions that I see in my admin panel. So keep asking them, and we'll get to them with Shama.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so yes, I'm speaking at the Adobe Summit next
I think
week.
it's
Is
July
it? Yes.
22nd, I think.
Thank you, Mitch. You are
You,
better appraised in my schedule than I am, and I'm very
you've been busy. You've
impressed.
been busy.
and, yes, it's okay. So on a side note, it's funny because usually that I do keynotes around the world, and I thought, well, this is going to be a nice break. Like I'll take it. I get to spend more time with my son, no problem. And I've actually been busier doing more remote keynotes than I would live. So go figure, which is not a bad thing. One of my topic is close before you convince. And I think this will really speak to
Ooh.
you, Mitch, and a lot of the professionals in the group, because the idea is that this is especially in B2B, the stats, the studies that they've done show that the buyer has made up their mind. 60% of their mind is made up before they even come to your site, right? Before they even approach a salesperson. So think about that. Like they're already sold or unsold on you, on your product, on your brand. Really all that's left is, is there a fit? Do they engage or do they not? Like it's that simple. And so part of my talk is really this idea of how do you close before you convince? What are the things that you need to have in place that allow your clients, your prospects, to convince themselves to see that you're the right choice? And now it's funny, more searches happen post-purchase. People think, oh, you've done business, that's great. But more searches are happening post-purchase where people want to feel good about their decision, right?
Really?
And so
Really?
yeah, exactly. And that is surprising, isn't it? And so people
Mm-hmm.
make that decision sometimes, and then they look at, like, what did I just buy? What was this product? Like, did I make a good choice? That sense of anxiety exists of, did I make a good choice? And so part of understanding is sales doesn't end when someone says, yes, I want you to, like, let's say, Mitch, I want you to be my lawyer on this case, or you can represent me. It doesn't stop at that point, because then it's like, did I hire the right person? It's like, oh no, Mitch knows his stuff. I feel really good, like
Interesting. So
this.
the post-retention research, after you retain, they're checking you out. They're seeing exactly what
Yeah,
did I make, the buyer's remorse, right? So
buyer's remorse.
so let me ask you a question, because I did want to talk about personal branding and how I think it's super important right now. The relationships the relationships we've been building the last 3 decades have proven to be invaluable these last 3 months, right? And talk to us a little bit about why personal branding is so important, and how, even though maybe 60% of the people are ready to purchase your products or services, they're already sold on you, right? Because of your personal brand,
Yeah,
because of what they've read. You still have to make that user experience simple. For example,
of
there's
course.
somebody who I was reaching out to do something. I couldn't find through their website how to place the order. And I finally gave up. I'm busy. I didn't have
Wow.
time, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, talk to us a little bit about personal branding right now in a COVID-19 world, and how we can combine that with creating a customer experience that works.
More important than ever before, because here's the thing, right? Everybody has a brand. Mitch, you have a brand. Everybody in this group watching has a brand. The only question is your brand by default or by design? That's it. Right.
Interesting.
Hi, AJ. I'm saying hi, AJ, because it's my son's name is also, his nickname is also AJ. It's Archer
Stop.
James.
Are you
So
serious?
we,
Are you
it's Archer
serious?
James. Yeah, it's Archer James. So we call him AJ.
So my daughter's name's AJ.
Really?
Yeah, so it's Alexandra Jackson, and the name was
That's
so long that when
wonderful.
she's playing soccer and running cross country, it's too long. Go, Alexandra. So from day one, we called her AJ. And
That's
today, if you go to
so
Shepherd
funny.
Mullen, the firm in Century City that she's a first year associate at, you'll see under her
Oh,
picture AJ Jackson. That's what everybody calls her.
how
So
fun.
there's a Zen there,
That's
Shama.
funny. Yeah, Mitch, that's great. Yeah, so I love the name Archer, and so his name is Archer James.
I love
And
that.
when we call him Archie, of course, for short, right? And then
AJ.
a lot of our friends and family call him AJ. So
I
Andrew
love that.
Jared, there we
I
go.
love it. I love that. That's
Thanks for
great.
sharing that, AJ. That's fun. Yeah, so I guess I'm partial to the name AJ now because it's my son's name.
As am I. I think we've
Uh,
got 200 people here. Have you already started branding AJ for his future?
he's gonna do all
So,
that himself.
okay.
Mommy's not doing any of that.
I don't believe that for a minute.
Uh,
We need to talk.
oh no, it's so funny. Patrick and I, because we both come from such humble roots and humble beginnings, part of what we already feel like is, oh man, this kid better start working the moment he can hold a job.
Nicole Laboud. I don't know if you know
Oh,
Nicole. She's one of our favorite people in the world,
hi,
and
Nicole.
she is 2/3 of the way there. She's
Oh, that's
probably about 5, 6
great.
months pregnant, and it's public knowledge. Okay, so we're thinking
Okay.
about you, Nicole, but no, AJ's taken.
I did. Well, you're welcome to it. Hi, Brian. There's oh my goodness, I have a good podcast I can recommend for Nicole that I was just on called called Pregnant Startup or Startup Pregnant. I'm sorry, I'll have to find this. Nicole, if you send me a tweet, I will find it for you because I just recorded this podcast and it's all about motherhood and running a business and that journey. So Nicole, I think you'd really enjoy that content. So very different content. We won't share that here for a much more diverse
It's
audience.
probably as
But
applicable as anything else we're talking about right now. That's
but
the point, is we're all juggling. But let's go back.
yes.
Let's circle back to personal branding and why it's so important.
Okay. So yeah, so we're talking about everybody has a brand, default or design, right? But that's the only question you've got to ask. Is my brand by default or is it by design? Because the truth is I can find something on everybody in this room, everybody, but it may be what I piece together, what's kind of already, something's already out there, right? I mean, we're talking about kids. The majority of kids by the age of 2 have, and by majority I mean over 90% of kids have some sort of digital footprint, right? From parents sharing pictures, whatnot, they have a digital footprint. So
Right.
being strategic with your brand, because here's the other thing. Don't think people realize how strategic you can be with your brand and how strategic you should be. Because part of your brand isn't just for the sake of having a brand, right? It's cultivating that reputation, cultivating what you want to be known for. I think the other day on Twitter, someone was looking for a lawyer, Mitch, and of course you popped into my head and I tagged you on it and I said, have you talked to our very own? Because
Right.
that is the category that you own, and when I think about, boy, how are all these laws going to be changing right now with COVID? Like, what does all this mean? I think of you. When I think
It's
tax, I
crazy.
think someone
It's
else,
crazy.
right? I
It's
think
crazy.
of people in their boxes. Part of the goal for everybody in here who's a professional should be, how do you become synonymous with what it is that you do? And then how you present it is that flair, right? That's sort of that's your personal stamp, if you will. But being able to create kind of the platform for yourself, like one of the things we've been doing is we've been creating these playbooks for people with their personal brands, because so many times they'll say, how did you do it? How did you build this personal brand? And now I realize, there is sort of a template to it. There is sort of a which platforms to engage on, what's that brand narrative, who's your audience going to be? And I'm like, man, if it saves people time, I'll gladly put that together with my team. So with one of the doctors that I mentioned, who's our client right now, part of what we're doing right now for him is helping him figure that out and putting that together as to where his audience is and what that needs to look like. So yeah, your brand is now, and it's such a part of your company, especially if you're a service professional, especially if you're a solopreneur, even if you have a small agency, a small company, at every level, your brand plays a key role. If you work for a huge enterprise, you have multiple stakeholders, right? It's how your boss sees you. It's how your other department heads see you. It's how your boss's boss sees you. So I think part of this is you've got to cultivate that brand for yourself. And rather than waiting for that accidental elevator ride, which we've all heard about, that like you'd run into someone at the elevator and like, you freeze, like, what do you say? Being able to engage, that elevator is also digital now, right? So what do people know about you?
Oh, I love that.
What's the
say that
have?
again. I love that. That's
Oh, that elevator is now digital, right? That elevator, the what I consider like strategic serendipity, what you're praying and hoping that the boss enters the elevator at the same time. It's just you guys, and you can finally have that chance to introduce yourself and have that connection, whoever it is that you look up to or you're excited about. But now you can do that. You can be in the forefront of what it is that you want to be known for. And again, this goes back to closing before you convince people. You're already, you're pre-sold, right? You're pre-sold on what it is that you're offering. People already know and trust you. That's the big thing.
Yes.
Part of so much of our noise around social media is get attention. But if you really think about it, Mitch, anyone can get attention. Okay? The attention is not, you wave over here and you've got people's attention for a second. You could go, have a virality moment on TikTok, you have people's attention, but attention only goes so far. See, when it's irrelevant, even a whisper can be massive, or even a whisper can go viral, especially on Twitter when there's a hunger for it, when it's relevant to your audience. So part of it is figuring out what does that sort of core messaging look like, and not just focusing on attention for the sake of attention, but how do you get focus? And how do you get market share? And how do you get mind share? That is very different than fleeting moments of attention.
So how do we do that? I think I saw an article that you wrote for Inc. magazine about why mass marketing, mass communication doesn't work anymore. It's not as effective as it used to be. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And
Sure.
So if in fact that's the case, or if that's your belief, then how can we build our personal brands in a personal way without tapping into mass marketing or mass communication?
See, there's a difference between mass communication and communicating with a large group of people. So mass communication generally goes back to these billboards, to these like massive, like, you're just putting out information. It's not targeted. It's just spewing stuff. This is where people get a lot of what we hear when we first work with clients is, we're kind of getting helter-skelter results. Helter-skelter is my word. I'm from Texas originally. So, we say that along with cattywampus.
But and now you're in Florida, Texas to Florida. Either one right now, and I'm in California. So, yeah, three tough states right now. It's tough.
It's interesting for sure. And I just find that sort of fascinating, where mass communication is much more, you're constantly it's the people who spam you on LinkedIn, and you're like, I don't know you, buddy. You haven't built a relationship here. You have to earn that trust. You have to gain that. Yeah. The other thing is, how do you create a personal brand that scales? So with my personal brand, I create a lot of content that I am communicating at a mass level all the time, right? I've got a YouTube channel and LinkedIn and Twitter and a global audience, but the content that I'm creating, the narrative that I'm talking about, the things that I'm addressing, the importance of sort of finding that moment. My third book that I'm working on, yes, while there's scale to this, the core messaging, the interaction, you can't fake that. Like, the response, responding to a tweet, responding to people, being helpful. And that comes from a place of genuinely wanting to help, of course.
Well, and if you are focused on building your personal brand, which might also be your professional brand, and Shama, when you were kind enough to refer someone to me, I made a point that I think within 2 hours, maybe within 4 hours, I responded to that individual. Okay. In other words, immediately did what I needed to do. If I had
I'm not surprised.
if I had not done that, that would have harmed my personal brand. directly or indirectly with either you or the other person or the other person's community. And so it's really important right now, even if you're engaging on a mass level in a personalized way, to make sure that you walk your talk and follow up when you should be, or team members should be following up. But it's challenging. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, though.
You know what? There's not shortcuts. Well, I shouldn't say that. So there's ways to optimize, obviously, right? There's ways to be able to leverage. Like, I have a lot of templates I use because I know the kind of questions I get asked often. I created this whole piece on Forbes. They were like, so you want a career in marketing? Because I get this question so much, and I put everything in there. So now every time I get that question, I'm like, here you go. Here's the game plan. Like, here's how you do it. So part of it, and part of it, you're right. Like, you've got to know, you've got to be responsive. It's so funny. I reached out to this gal through Instagram. I actually found it first on Pinterest. Found her on Pinterest because she was posting some really interesting takes on style, like fashion style. And I just found it fascinating. And just as I was about to, do the COVID closet clean out, as so many of us, I thought this is really interesting, right? Like, her take on things. And I found her Instagram, and I found her website, and I sent her an email saying, hey, I'd like to work with you. I think this is neat. How do you work? And I don't hear back anything. A week goes by. I'm like, this is crazy. And then I go on her Instagram, and she's posting, like, she's clearly posting things to get business, right? Like, and I'm like, but here's a customer. So then I leave a message, and I'm like, dropped you an email. I send her another email. I'm like, hey, I think what you do is really cool. Like, I'd like to sign up. Where do I sign up? Right? And then finally she emails me back, and she's like, oh, okay, I'm so sorry, I've been busy. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, you want to have customers, and at the same time, it's important. Like, today I talked to a client, and it's funny because my team, this is interesting stuff that happens behind the scenes. My team came to me and they said the client wants us to stop what we're doing. They want us to pause our advertising marketing efforts. And they said, we're really confused. It was going well. Like, did we do something? And I said, let me talk to the client. And I talked to the client, and I said, listen, why are you guys pulling the plug, right? We're doing great. And he said, no, that's not the problem. He said, we are running out of inventory.
Okay, that's the kind of problem I guess you want to have, right?
Yeah. So he said, it's not that you guys aren't doing a good job. It's that we're doing too good a job and we can't keep up. He said, I can't even get the pieces to manufacture what we need to get where we need to be. So, like, please, and it's funny because when I work with clients, I ask them now, I'm like, can you handle demand? Like, once, we do so much in media relations. I'm like, if you end up on the cover of Wall Street Journal, we've had campaigns that go viral all the time. I'm like, can you handle it? Is your website going to crash? Right? Are you, like, to your point, Mitch, are you not going to be able to finish taking an order? Right? Because something is missing. Or are you going to not have enough inventory? So all these things, people think about marketing, but I think it's important also to think about all your operations, to think about the overall health and structure of your business. And also, what do you want to do? For a professional, you've got to also think about, how you want to separate your time. I'll give you a great example. When my son was born, so Nicole, take notes, because this is, everyone said you have to find a pediatrician you really like. And of course, I was like, how different can it, and they pretty much are they all the same, or isn't it and apparently I learned not, because the initial pediatrician we found, we waited in his lobby. This is pre-COVID, right? We waited in his lobby for like an hour. Then we were in the room,
so
very crowded. I mean, and a well-respected physician, and he came in and it was 5 minutes and he was done. And I just felt like, oh my goodness, and I got a sneak peek at his office, and his office was an absolute mess. And I was like, okay, this is not going to work for us. We're both very busy. Like, I cannot be waiting here with a newborn in someone's office for an hour. It's just not going to work. So then I thought, all right, well, that's so then we found another pediatrician who's concierge pediatrics, and they don't take insurance at all. So it's all, whether you have it or not, they don't accept it. It's cash only. Now, completely different experience, right? Our wait time was maybe like 30 seconds. We got taken right into the room. It was separate for newborns. The doctor came in. He spent a good 30 minutes, examining my son, having a chat with me and his dad, talking to us about, what are our concerns, milestones, and really, I felt like this guy really cares. He's genuinely interested in my son, and he's our pediatrician for life, right? Like
he will be.
And I have no problem paying that, because that value is different. So point is, you've got to figure out, the other pediatricians obviously a volume game, right? They've got to get a lot of people in to pay the bills. This guy probably doesn't work with as many people because they don't accept insurance. I feel very lucky that we're in a position where we don't need to be. We can, my son's visits are fine. He's a healthy young man. He's not a little, there's no issues. We're very grateful. So for us, it works out. But it's
Right.
one of those things about your personal brand. The personal brand for the first physician is very different than the brand for the second physician, and they both work for different types of families, right? Where if insurance is important for you, you need a doctor that takes insurance, and you want someone who's smart, to the point, you don't mind waiting, great. But if you're someone like us, like our family, where we're like, no, like every minute that I'm here is a minute away from my office, from the things that need me, like time is very much money for us, right? And so we both of us sitting there for an hour are like getting jittery, because we're like, wait, it's the middle of the day. We've got, emails coming in and people to talk to.
So Shama, imagine you finding this concierge physician, and the website's beautiful, and it's in a beautiful building, and you guys show up and you wait in the waiting room for another hour. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And you go in, and he or she pops her head in for about 5 minutes, and you get the same kind of service. They're not going to be your doctor either. And what I see is, especially in the legal profession, physicians and CPAs, which is a large group of the audience tonight, both live and recorded, is they're displaying a concierge type of website, app, marketing type of experience, yet, especially in COVID-19, the phone calls aren't being returned. The clients are waiting, for an hour to get on the Zoom. In other words, the experience doesn't match the marketing. It doesn't match the branding. About 20 years ago, well, we have concierge physicians here in Southern California, right? Of course we do, right? LA, Orange County. I've got friends that were ER doctors, and that's what they're doing now. And their quality of life is better. There's less stress, less patients, but you got to walk the talk. And about 20 years ago, Lisa and I, so my partner's my wife, we met in law school. About 20 years ago, that's where we went with our law firm. Okay. We decided to really just take a certain type of case and provide an exemplary level of service. And what I've noticed over the 20 years is, if we're gone on vacation and there's a client that's expecting that type of service and it doesn't happen, we hear about it. I mean, that's, it conflicts with our branding. And I just love the fact that you brought this up, because so many professionals have a beautiful website, beautiful office building, but guess what? The service isn't there. And on social media, in digital, in today's world, that's not going to work.
It's not. And Mitch, the bar is higher, because the thing is, we work with a lot of B2B clients as well as many tech type companies. And what I find fascinating is, it used to be that you're compared with your competitors, right? Like your comparison is, well, I went with this one doctor and you guys are better, so great. Or like, I had a manufacturing client that said, listen, we'd like to do more, but they said, our competitor, we're heads and tails, we're heads and shoulders above them. And I said, what makes you say that? And they said, well, we got a website and they got a catalog.
So 20 years ago, that was true, right? 25 years ago.
This is the funny thing. This is the bar that they were comparing themselves to. I said, except your customers no longer are comparing you to what the other attorneys are like. They're comparing you to their overall experience. Because let's face it, we've all ordered from Amazon, and when it said you can't have 2-day shipping or 1-day shipping, we've all been like, I can't believe I can't have it tomorrow, right? And we've all, sighed when our Uber or whatnot, it's like 7 minutes away. You're like, 7 minutes? What happened to my 2
See,
minutes?
that's why the old dogs like me that were around before the internet and spending $10,000 a month on our law library and some other things that now it's completely free. That's why I appreciate this environment so much, right?
Sure.
Because I remember the way it used to be.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can appreciate it, and we can, and I certainly share that appreciation as an immigrant kid. Like, it's all amazing. I remember experiencing my first library, and I was like, wait, what do you mean I can take this book home and bring it back for free? Like, that's, it was such an exciting concept. But I will say this, Mitch, I think it's, it's important to make that distinction and just highlight it. The expectation bar is higher. You're not compared to your competitors. You're compared to the Apple Store, the overall user experience people have with their brands, So part of it is you do have to fulfill that brand promise. You do have to, like team your note about would you have waited an hour if the doctor was still available? And it's like, no, all those things matter, right? How quickly are we seen? How safe do I feel? What's the level of care that my son receives? And that, it's also, here's the crazy thing, simple things too, because most practices, right? These are like easy ways to win. Most pediatrics practices, they have, I was very curious. I wanted someone who I could call in an emergency. I was very scared as a new mom saying, what if something happens? And I want to be able to call. Well, most practices have an answering service that then calls the doctor. Because it's a concierge practice, there's 3 doctors, and what they do is they just take turns. And they said, anytime you call, it'll always be a doctor that answers. And I'm like, it doesn't take that much because you're splitting it among 3 doctors, and the answering service does the same thing. They're calling you, you're returning the call. This way, the doctor says, text me, call me. My OB-GYN was amazing. He would text me all the time. He would just text me to see how I was doing and how, and it was like, wow, this is modern day medicine, but it's also modern day business practices. Right? This is the expectation now of how you're supposed to engage with your patients, your clients.
Now with the experience we've all had with COVID-19, now people are expecting to be able to pop on a live video and talk to you. They're expecting an instant response, whether it's through an app or a text message. That level of service, and I'm glad you said, like the Apple Store. For example, if lawyers ran their practices at that level, Apple, Amazon, just a high-end type of business service, that's what the clients are looking for. So I had 2 things I want to unpack real quick. Okay, you're getting me all excited here. So just to let you know, one of the things I've noticed, Shama, and I've watched you grow, your brand grow over the years, and your business grow. One thing we talk about here in our mastermind is as you build your brand and as things start to take off, you've got to have that infrastructure set up. You've got to have that CRM. Absolutely. Like, for example, I use Clio, right? I'm a big proponent of Clio. It's like an awesome case management service and platform, and it's cloud-based. So everything comes into Clio, which means everything's being organized. Whether 10 people call or 100 people reach out to me today, everything's organized so that customer or client experience isn't marginalized. And so you have to prepare for this so that when you're building your brand and when you're marketing your practice and things start to take off, you're able to accommodate the new clients and take care of your existing clients. And I think a lot of people drop the ball there.
Yeah, they do. And this is the part of, here's the other thing that I think people can take heart in. It's a process, right? These systems, there's always new tools. And I think it helps to have that sort of genuine passion. Like, Mitch, I think you are an advantage because you genuinely love technology. You can tell that you genuinely love building community. These things I think are harder to train. Right, this sense of like, what do I enjoy? But I think whether you're an introvert or extrovert or sometimes people get very caught up in like, oh, but that's not my personality. You have so many avenues. There's so many ways to make your mark. I mean, look at Substack. Now we're back to paid newsletters. You can, if you have some great insights, you can start a paid newsletter. There was a great article profile on a young man who's in his 20s who writes great pieces on the economy. And, he's got a personal paid newsletter and you subscribe to that and that's his full-time job. And I'm like, this is great. He's sharing his knowledge. So I do think in that way, there's a way to find the correct outlet for your voice, the right fit. And then you really just sort of double down on it.
In the last 12 minutes or so, can I ask you a couple of questions that are coming in?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I think this one's from Periscope or Twitter. I'm not sure, you guys, and we're all over the place.
Okay.
I'm trying to channel everything in here. But the question has to do with, look, Shama, if you were a new lawyer opening up a practice right now, COVID-19 world, right now,
Yeah.
you don't want to work for a firm, you want to open up your own practice and get the ball rolling. Maybe what would be the first 2 or 3 things, that you would be working on or doing to get the practice ready to rock and roll once we get this COVID-19 thing behind us?
So the thing is, you don't even have to wait for COVID-19. I think that's the other thing. People are saying we're waiting. There's nothing to wait. Business is continuing, guys. I can tell you, we've had our busiest year so far.
Yeah.
And yes, we are digital, but I changed this. Look, court cases, as you know, Mitch, they're doing them on Zoom. They're trying
to. So what would you do? Yeah, I'm all about being proactive. I didn't word that question correctly. I'm just reading what someone said. What would you do?
So that's what I'm saying. The first thing I do is not wait and see, not do the whole, let me see, after COVID. No. You need to work on your practice today, starting right now. This is your moment. Own it. The other things I would say is before you start marketing your practice, be very clear on what your differentiator is as a lawyer and in your practice. Like Mitch, you mentioned that you and Lisa really had a good, you got really clear on how you wanted to serve your clients, what your model was. And then I think, especially for lawyers starting out now, if I was starting out, I would pick a niche. I would pick a group of people that I really wanted to serve to the best, to the highest level. And maybe that is, we're talking about physicians, maybe it's agency owners, maybe it's whatever, right? So I would get very clear on my audience. Now, it used to be like if you did this 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't as necessary because just being, that bar keeps going higher. As the bar has risen, now you need to really find that niche, your audience, your messaging. I would spend 80% of your time getting really clear on the narrative, on your messaging. If I was doing it, get really clear on my narrative, get really clear on my messaging, get really clear on my audience. And then I would spend a lot of time creating content for that audience. And it doesn't even have to all be legal. If I'm helping, for example, dentists succeed, I'm interviewing anybody, Mitch, kind of like you're doing now for your community, that can help that community succeed. I would be all about helping my clients' customers, right? How can I help them grow and again, I'm speaking as if I'm a business lawyer. It can be many things, but you really need to get clear on that community you're serving and start to create a solid voice in that industry.
I like that. So while you are creating a solid voice in the industry, maybe it's through interviews, maybe it's through platforms like this. Where would you be sharing this voice? Would you be sharing it like we are right now on multiple platforms using live video? Would you pick what you're comfortable with doing depending on your
Great question. I would base it on research. As I said, these playbooks, and you can create your own, obviously, by doing all this research and homework, but figuring out where does your audience hang out, right? And then focusing on there. You maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's LinkedIn. Getting really clear on where your audience is, that's where you want to be. And people always think what's your favorite social platform? Or they ask what are you really into? And I'm like, the truth is I don't care about any social platform. I'm really agnostic.
Right.
And people always think I don't have feelings towards technology. I just use what makes sense to be able to accomplish the goals my clients have. Right. So I would say before you get into, I like this, no. Where's your audience? What are they expecting and how can you best reach them? Once you have that, then you have the benefit of looking at, which platform maybe makes sense in terms of your voice. But you always want to start with where your audience is first.
I was on a panel at a Linked OC event here in Orange County, which Brian Elliott used to run. I don't know if you know Brian. And that was the question from the audience. And I'm listening to the young entrepreneurs answering the question. There were 3 or 4 of us up there. When it came to me, I said, you know how I would figure it out? Back then, I would use my phone and I would talk to my clients and I would ask my clients, where are you hanging out? What platforms are you on? What works for you, right? And then I would build my brand around their response. Okay, but here's the thing. Let's say the response is, I love watching videos and live videos on YouTube. That's what I like to do. That's a potential client or your client telling you this, Shama. but for whatever reason, you don't like doing videos. You can't stand how you look on video. You don't like the way you sound on videos, and you're not going to do videos. Should you overcome that self-imposed limitation, or do you pivot and somehow satisfy that video need of the client by offering a different type of content? You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people
you can also be creative. People do videos with cartoons. They do it. There's literally paper figures that you could, it doesn't even have to be people think video, they think it's your face. It's not. You could be super creative with it. You could do examiner videos. You could do really, bad sketches and hold. I mean, the thing is to get, so I would say don't let that be a limitation, right? You can be very creative in how you reach. Here's the other thing. People aren't always, this is challenging. You don't always get honest answers because a lot of times it's last attribution. Oh, how did you decide to work with Mitch today? What brought you here? And it'd be like, oh, well, my friend Shama recommended you. But really what's happened before that is I saw your name in my feed a few times. Shama mentioned you over dinner. I heard someone else say that they worked with you, but the final point was, oh, Shama recommended you, right? So part of understanding is that you have multiple touch points. In fact, it can take over to 21 touch points. So one is, where is your buyer? But two, realizing that they're probably not in only one place, right? Just look at us, look at all the places you consumed content today, Mitch. Twitter, probably your email,
everything,
maybe,
everything.
It's everything. And so the days of where's your audience hanging out, that one place, those days are over. Part of why retargeting, for example, still works so well with websites is because when someone lands on your site, you can sort of follow them around the internet, right? And so you're always trying to get, that's why email marketing works so well. You get their email address, you get their permission, and then you get in front of them. So part of that is also realizing that there's not we have to be very omni-channel now, right? To use sort of an enterprise level term, it's not going to be one channel. It's going to be multiple channels. Now, given that you might be one individual, quality over quantity. So choose one or two platforms that you do a great job with, and then you can use that and leverage that across the board. Like, you could, for example, this, live stream that we're doing, you could turn this into a podcast. You can chop it up.
Oh, it's going to be a podcast.
You could take it, you could chop it into multiple Instaposts, right? You could divide it into IG videos. You can take it and turn it into, I know you at least a good 30, 40 tweets in here, right? And so you can also think about how you can create one long form piece of content, which then you can leverage and break across the board.
Shama, have you worked with Lately? Are you familiar with the company Lately?
Yes.
Okay, because we had the co-founder on yesterday in our mastermind, and it was an interesting product which does everything you just said, using AI. Just an interesting concept, right? To create content once and then repurpose it in multiple ways. As they describe, it gets you to third base, and then you take it from there to bring it home. And it's just a fascinating concept.
Yeah, there's some great tools out there. I mean, here's the thing, though. This is where you still have to be strategic, though, right? Because, there's things that AI can help you, and then also thinking about what is going to be appealing to your audience, right? So the tweets, your takeaways, for example, this conversation, Mitch, might look different than what I share with my audience. Because
it would.
There might be
yours
overlap,
would be intelligent,
right?
and well written and to the point, and mine would be all over the place. Real quick in the last couple of minutes, because there's this questions being asked 2 or 3 different ways, and it's like, what's the best content for lawyers to create on social media? I'm paraphrasing. I will say that I did see a tweet from you earlier today, and maybe we can just expand upon it. You guys follow Shama on Twitter, but she talked about content that gets watched, okay? And she said content that gets watched, it's entertaining, informative, educational, and valuable. Content that gets ignored, mostly lawyer content, is empty ads for your brand. Call me if you've been injured in an accident, right? Talk to us about the importance of being entertaining, informative, educational, valuable, and how can we do that as lawyers?
So one is getting really clear on your audience, right? So it's funny you mentioned the injury lawyer ads, because I always think, man, they'd be so much better off partnering with folks, not like the ambulance chaser style way, but in a way that's genuine, because if you have been injured, if you have more empathy, that's a very traumatic experience to go through, right? That's not
Game changing.
that's not easy. Yeah, there's rehab involved. There's how you think about it. And so your social content could really be around how to get back to your normal life, like how to get over and come out stronger for the better when you've been through an accident. And to that degree, you could have therapists that you talk to. You can have so many varieties of people, because your end goal isn't how do I get this person to give me their money and how do I represent them and help them win just in court, but how do I help them get their life back, right? So and I think that's the difference. And so part of it is really thinking about what your customers are trying to, and if you're like business law, law is one of those things where it's and pardon me for saying this, Mitch, in many ways it's a necessary evil, right? Right? Or
it's absolutely necessary.
Right. But I mean, in the sense, like a lot of business owners would feel like, oh, I've got to talk to my lawyer. It's not something that you generally, like most people. I mean, they're talking about
Shama. They don't like us or love us until they need us, and then when they need us, we're their best friend. Okay.
But there's a lot of professions like that, really. I mean, marketers, boy, we've got a rep too. It's like, oh, I've got to do marketing. It's not something I generally, enjoy, whatever it is. But I think the point being here is, but your customers don't come to you because they want business law or they want legal advice. What they really want is to feel safe in their business, to feel like they're protected, that they're getting a return on their investment, right? You're helping them grow their business. And that's what, I love about you, Mitch, is you think holistically, right? To kind of go back to where we started in some ways, you take a holistic approach on how can you be of service to your clients? Like I mentioned, the gentleman who emailed me from Hawaii, I haven't responded to him because I thought, let me do my research. Let me talk to my colleagues. Let me really give this some thought about how can I best serve him in the community right now when they're hurting, right? When all these businesses that need to go literally online overnight, what's the best way to be able to do that and create that? So to your point, when you're creating content, don't think about just your expertise. Think about what it is that your customers, at the end of the day, your clients actually want.
In my book, which you were kind enough to share, contribute a chapter on how to find the right social media agency, which, by the way, everyone really loves that chapter. In the same book, Carmine Gallo, who wrote the book Talk Like TED, where he interviewed 200 top TED speakers, what makes these TED presentations so darn good. And Carmine broke it down that every presentation is kind of like your content thing here. It needs to be entertaining, it needs to be unique, and it needs to be memorable. And if you're creating your content with those three elements, in addition to what Shama shared here, and you're answering questions, you're fixing a problem, you're helping a client fix a problem, you're taking the client by the hand on social media, and you're showing them the way. They really appreciate that, especially if you're a lawyer, because they're not used to seeing that. Okay. But real quick, because we are at the top of the hour, I know you're busy. It's been a long day. I want to respect your time. You said something about a new book coming out. What's going on here?
I'm working
not gonna let
on
that
a
go
book right now. I'm working on a book right now, Mitch. And the premise really is, how do we deal with not just deal with the unexpected, but how do we manufacture unexpected? So similar to your point of, how do you get people to engage with your content? How do you make it so you have these moments? And I talk a lot about moments in my firm and what we do and helping our clients find that moment. Sometimes it's a given, like look at everything that's happening with Goya. I will refrain from political. That's not the point. The point is simply from a brand marketing standpoint, it's a very fascinating thing to watch. I just wrote about it in my newsletter, right?
I know you did.
Sometimes these things happen to your brand, where you're like, oh man, right, this is my chance. Other times you can create that moment. You can create that narrative. You can create something that the media and your customers, your clients are genuinely intrigued by. That's the third book.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward. Have you come up with a title yet? Or are you still working on it?
Unexpected. That's her working title.
Ooh, all right. Well, definitely keep us in the loop when the book comes out, Shama. And for those viewers that would like to reach out to you and touch base with you, listeners to the podcast version, which will drop next week, what's the best way for everyone to reach out to you and connect with you?
Well, I'm on the interwebs quite a bit. If you want to see, a lot of the things I'm talking about in action, you can definitely check out zenmedia.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. You pick your poison. I'm always happy to connect.
All right, Shama, thank you for squeezing us in today, because I know it's been one of those crazy, every day seems like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. I can't tell the difference anymore. And
Great way to say it.
And listen, our best wishes to you and your family, and hopefully the puppy, will get better.
Oh,
And
thank you.
hopefully we'll get you on after the book comes out and talk more about that. Okay.
I'd like that. Thanks so much for
All right.
having me, Mitch. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us, guys.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Take care, Shama. Bye-bye.
Bye.